AARP CEO Myechia Minter-Jordan. All right, let me just get your gut reaction to whether it's a smart idea for people to maybe commit some of their retirement dollars into these types of alternative assets, Myechia.
Well, hi, Liz. First, let me say thanks for having me. And as it pertains to this executive order, we're still waiting to get more details. One of the facts that I think is really important is only half of the American public actually have 401ks. And we want to make sure that as we think about the investors, that we're protecting them, we're ensuring that they have access to their earned benefits like Social Security, which is why we're lifting up the 90th celebration of Social Security. And to understand that over 90 years, Social Security has never missed a paycheck, that over 183 million Americans are contributing to this incredibly important program to ensure that they have the retirement that they deserve. So while we're excited about learning more about this executive order and the different assets that investors will be able to then access, we also want to make sure that we have a stable source of income for individuals who are retiring. And we know that Social Security has been there for 90 years, and we need it to continue for generations into the future.
Okay, but we also know, and we have seen all kinds of nonpartisan groups say that in 7 years, it could very well run out. And so 401ks have become that much more important when it comes to people's retirements. And so when you look at these alternative asset choices that the president, basically, just to be clear, the executive order instructs government agencies to draft guidance plans that can be incorporated. Right. So getting people more information, certainly, but also more choice. I mean, cryptocurrency as well. It's just that some of these are highly risky in some cases.
We want to make sure as AARP that individuals have access to education and resources and that they can make the financial decisions that are right for themselves and their families. Having more opportunities for investment is important, but also understanding that Social Security has been the backbone, and we are concerned about the solvency of Social Security. We know that if congressmen and women don't act by 2034, that Social Security could see a decrease in about 20% of these earned benefits. And so it's incredibly important for us as AARP to advocate for Americans and ensuring that this program will last for generations to come. Lifting up the 90 years that Social Security has been in place is important, but also focusing on the solvency. As these other opportunities become available, we want to make sure that there's a balanced approach.
Yeah, we have had Frank Bisignano, formerly of Fiserv. He's a good friend of the show. He is now in charge of Social Security. He's come on and talked about a lot of changes they're making, shortening wait times, because people get confused. They need to pick up the phone and call. And so all of that is good. However, everybody knows it's a layering on process if you are going to have enough money to retire on. Many people are living a lot longer than they were back in the 70s. So that only underscores the fact that when people hear the solvency is a question, that they're almost shoved into riskier assets, are they not? And so what does AARP advise maybe people who aren't yet at retirement age to do? What is the number one, number two thing you say people must do ahead of their retirement?
I'd say first and foremost, join the fight with AARP to ensure that Social Security will remain solvent. We're lifting up stories of Americans across the country, from Annie, who I sat with on the bus when we did our big Times Square celebration of the 90th anniversary, for whom her primary source of income is retirement, to individuals that I've met across the country for whom Social Security is a part of their retirement. It's important for us to understand that it is an earned benefit and that we should continue to fight for it while other opportunities for investment come into play. But we want to make sure AARP's role remains providing education and resources so that people and their families can make these choices that are important, but particularly around retirement. We want to ensure that individuals understand the importance of Social Security now, before it becomes when they meet the terms of retirement, before they retire. They want to understand what Social Security can do for them and to be able to fight, continue to fight, and join us in that fight for ensuring that Social Security remain solvent.
You're right. It is earned. I mean, we've all been paying into it if we've had jobs year after year after year. And it certainly is something that either fleshes out or is that primary source. That said, when you look at new options, is it a good thing to at least have more choice of what to put in, say, for example, a 401k?
Sure. Of course, it's a good thing to have choices. And at the same time, we know that over 90% of Americans value Social Security. 69 million Americans depend on Social Security. 183 million Americans contribute to Social Security every day in the work that they do. And so the importance of it cannot be understated. And that's what we're here fighting for. And so we encourage individuals to join us in this fight, to understand their benefits, to understand these are earned benefits, and to understand what role Social Security will play in their retirement.
Yeah, we could see some cuts, certainly, if not outright insolvency. So join the fight. Myechia, great to see you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.